What I would like to do today, though, is to offer a different approach to getting to know a bit about classical music in America. Why don't we look at the work of an instrument maker, someone who makes the very instruments that classical musicians perform on. This idea is embodied in a great luthier, and a luthier is one who makes string instruments. That gentleman is Mr. Christopher Savino, and is very well known internationally as a violin maker and a guitar maker. Chris Savino, thank you for joining us on American Music. I'm excited about your history and your reputation as a violin maker and a guitar maker. How often is there such a combination in artisans like yourself who both make violins and guitars? What is that?
Well, it's more rare today. A
Yes.
luthier a couple centuries ago made everything for the community that
Yes.
was needed as an instrument. And today it's more rare. I think specialization is a lot more common.
Now, we have talked a bit, of course, about how you got started in this, and we would like our audience to know, how did you get started? How did you become a violin maker and a luthier? We'll say a guitar maker and a violin maker. How did you do that?
The interest in music's been there since childhood through my family. They were patrons of great music, jazz, classical music, so I'd always played instruments and studied music and loved it and loved creating with my hands. Met a man in my own hometown in Cleveland, Ohio, who worked for an organ builder, and when I met him, I was so surprised that a builder of pipe organs was in the United States, let alone in my hometown.
Yes.
And quickly went over to interview for a job, expecting that my enthusiasm and excitement would just get me right in, and I was denied and crushed.
I see.
So I was on a quest.
Sure.
And I realized that it wasn't pipe organs I wanted to build. I was a string instrument player, and at this time I was studying guitar, classical guitar and jazz guitars very heavily, so I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I was previously a cellist, so all those areas interest me. And I searched around to find somebody, and I ended up working for a man who my parents bought instruments for us when we were children. It was the closest connection, and it was kind of magical to see him again and be working for him.
Wonderful.
I began making classical guitars. At the time I was working for a violin maker, but I was mainly a guitarist and starting to study privately and seriously. And I was studying all styles, and the one type of guitar that I didn't own was a classical guitar, even though I was studying classical guitar music. So I made that because it's what I needed. And through the making of it and studying that music, it became quite a passion of mine, classical guitar. And I love all styles of guitar, but something about classical guitar really moves me the most. It's got a long tradition. It's acoustic. It functions on its own merits as an acoustic instrument, primarily. And so it developed as a maker in classical guitar. At the same time, my interest in playing was developing. And I did that for at least, maybe 10 years, and then started building other styles of guitars. Once I started doing classical guitars, it took off, and I had so many interested people, it kept me busy and allowed me to refine my design. You have to build a lot of the same instrument to really refine its design and to get its sound and its playability. Because you don't know until you're done, until you're after 200 hours of working on the same piece, whether you've got what you want. Okay. There's no intermediate steps that can give you the full answer. So once I was very comfortable with that, I branched out into making jazz guitars and flat-top steel strings and got back into violin making.
How old were you then when you first saw that organ and you wanted to interview and you wanted to get that job?
I think I was 20 years old. I was already out of high school and studying music privately.
So you knew then that it wasn't just a performance of music, cellist and guitarist and very serious student, that it wasn't that you wanted, but you knew that you wanted to create with your hands, to create an instrument of some kind. You didn't know what it was necessarily, more than you did, or as much at least as you did being a performer. Is that right?
That's correct. You touched right on it. A performer I enjoy performing for the musical experience, but at heart I'm not a performer at all, and I don't even care to perform, though I do. So music is so personal and deep to me. The joy is almost selfish. I love to do it, and I still in the shop I can take an instrument down and get as lost in playing. But for some reason, creating for other people, creating the instruments for the other people and getting the approval that way just suits me.
That's wonderful.
It's really pleasing, and usually they're much better musicians than I, so I get to enjoy it from that side.
Yes. Would you tell us a bit about who these people are for whom you make instruments now? Who are they? What do they play? Where do they play? At what level do they play? Give us an idea.
It started out that I would be contacting usually professors of universities that were in music departments and getting to know people. And while I was attending North Texas State University, I was in the department, so these people were my professors.
I see.
And were instantly interested in my instruments. And from there, I went to the closest contacts to the major orchestras in the areas I've been and in the areas I live in now. Concert masters of symphonies. I've been lucky to have an involvement with Jan Sloman of the Dallas Symphony, who comes to my shop and gives a thorough playing of my instruments and a very honest opinion.
Yes.
And I've gone to New York to meet with Aaron Roseanne to replicate his very fine instrument.
Yes. That instrument is the Guarneri instrument.
It's a Guarneri. It's called the Kahansky,
yes,
named after one of its previous owners. And I went there to study a great instrument for inspiration and for knowledge that only a great instrument can provide. This instrument is made out of spruce and maple and ebony.
Spruce, maple, and ebony.
So it's only got 3 species of woods in it. It has about 200 pieces.
My.
And most of it is carved from solid blocks of wood. These surfaces are not bent, they're carved from blocks.
Yes.
And to demonstrate one part, as you can see obviously, the soundboard, or the top they call this, because it is the main vibrating surface.
I see.
And to get sound production, you need a surface that moves air. The bridge, the vibration of the string vibrates this bridge, which literally moves the top up and down, obviously not visibly.
Yes.
And that movement of the air creates pressure changes, which our ears then affect the pressure change. So the movement of this string is now moving your eardrum just through the air that's coming off of here. And that whole system of sound production has to be refined.
Yes.
Because it's going through a lot of different things.
Yes.
It's not easy to produce a fine sound. It takes a lot of experimenting. This is the inside of this. This is carved from a solid block of wood. That's just a big block like this. Inside there's only one brace, because the arched surface is very strong in itself. Any domed surface has inherent strengths. The thicknessing of these surfaces and the flexibilities that are resultant from that is very important to its complete sound production. And each piece of wood is so different, even from the same tree, that you can't come up with a set of specifications and just do that and have it come out right. Otherwise, these great instruments would be very easy to replicate. One, obviously, are these flexibilities here. Changing this thickness by 1/10 of a millimeter will greatly change that.
1/10 of a millimeter.
So the thickness here is about 2 millimeters to 3 millimeters, and it varies throughout that area. The thickest in these center areas where the tensions are greatest tensions.
Yes.
And starting with the solid block of wood, right from the beginning, tapping it, holding it in different areas, and tapping it to sense its tone. And as you scoop this out, that pitch changes. In fact,
there's a pitch in the wood. When you tap it like that, you hear a tone.
A tone, or many tones. And depending on where you hit it, you can get fundamental frequencies, or you can listen to the harmonics that are produced.
And your ear has to hear that, and it has to very definitely know what it means when it hears a given tone or set of tones as you tap. Is that right?
And as much knowing what the tone is or what it is, how it changes as I take a little wood off, how quickly does that pitch lower or raise, and
yes.
how many harmonics. The delicate balance in fine instrument making is taking it to that peak to where it's just rich with fundamentals and overtones. But if you go beyond that, it's gone.
Fundamental pitch of this top was at about E to E flat. This brace strengthens the top and transfers the vibrations to the whole surface to create more volume. Now what I'm going to do is trim this brace down to get my fundamental pitches to come back out. Now it's deadened because it's in there in a very blocky form and I don't hear the pitches I need. There's too much wood. So as I trim this down, I'll listen to the pitches and see if we can get back to what we started with. Pitch is way too high now. I'm trying to get down to back to the lower fundamental pitch.
It's always a surprise. I'm
Yes.
always trying to push the limits, but at the same time, not destroy the instrument.
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, it's not uncommon. I mean, it is uncommon, but occasionally you get to this point and
You have to just throw it out.
because it might not be a piece of wood that was ever intended to be a
Yes.
fine instrument.
Yes.
And sometimes you can
I
only
see.
tell after you've put a number of hours into
I
it.
see.
The outer surfaces are carved first,
I see.
so that I have my shape the way I want it, and then this surface is done according to the sound production I want.
Interesting. Now, do the F-holes have a classic or a standard dimension that is the same in all violins? Do these holes in the...
There's a range, a very small range of 4 to 5 millimeters, both in the length and the spacing.
I see.
And it's very critical to the sound production.
Interesting.
Violins in themselves only vary from maker to maker by 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch,
Yes.
but that can have a drastic change on its sound. So the spacing is very critical to the particular design of the
I
instrument.
see.
These define the main vibrating surface
Yes.
of the instrument. So just a couple of knife strokes through here can change
Yes.
it, can make it more projecting, but maybe a harsher tone. So you have the trade-off all the time.
That is just remarkable. Well, thank you very, very much.
My daughter Constance has been in the shop since she was only hours old, and we brought her through the door. So this is totally familiar to her. I've never had to put sharp tools out of reach or dangerous things out of her way because she's so familiar with it. There's no fascination to misuse or misplace. She sees things being used in a certain fashion. She sees the care that's taken with sharp tools or the delicate way that fine instruments are handled. She'll even pick up an instrument or a part of an instrument in her fingertips so gently and carefully because it's the only way she knows how. So it's actually been very easy. I thought when she was born I was going to have to board up the shop and lock everything away and say a lot of no, but it hasn't. In fact, now she begs. Every time she comes in here, she begs to fix a guitar or to use a hand plane or to carve or sand. If I'm doing it, she wants to do it too. So I let her do it as much as possible. And she doesn't let her do something that's fake. If she knows I'm doing this instrument because I'm really doing it, she wants to do that, not pretend on another instrument. And at times there I have to say, no, you're not old enough and this is too valuable and too delicate at this point that I can't let you do this one. And she's very understanding of that. And she loves the instruments from a musical standpoint. She has her own ukulele here that I just let her play the instruments the way she likes to, and she kind of imitates myself and her mother. I hear her playing the piano up there beautifully, just selectively picking notes out and then even duplicating a little phrase in a different octave, the same group of notes. And it's just so beautiful to hear her explore. I'm hesitant, totally hesitant to give her any kind of lessons at this point because I don't want to impede her exploration of it. When she takes her ukulele down, she loves to have me play it and dance to it and sing songs she knows, but then when she plays it, she insists on retuning the strings till they're very loose and give a very twangy, deep sound where you pluck it and it goes bang, or you know, very complex sound, but she insists on it. She just loves that. So she retunes it, and she's still exploring and then just enjoying that and not worrying about whether it is right by any standard. So again, I let her do that. She'll go sit under the bench with her ukulele and pluck it. She fell in love with a bass fiddle that was in here and was here for a long time because the repair took a long time, and she would pluck on it. And the day a man picked that up, she cried. She just was really sad. And so she tells me all about all the instruments she wants. And they all have to be pink, and they all have to have unicorns on them. And she just loves all her songs and to dance and hear. It's an ongoing thing every day. And now that I have a bass fiddle here all the time, she's very happy. Constance's life is the same arts that her mother and I are involved in for the most part. The arts or the crafts are not an extracurricular thing. She is either in the shop here for major parts of the day while I'm working and either working or playing herself, or she's upstairs in our living space where our dance studio is, where my wife teaches, and playing or dancing or playing the piano, or she's going to work with my wife at another dance studio and taking class in the other room or taking her mother's class. And all of life is a combination of what I do and my wife does, and our house is a dance studio, and it is a guitar shop and a violin shop, and it is a music studio. I hope she sees myself and Cynthia just living the life we love.